Economics, we are getting more and more serious about it, but as I said frequently, don't expect economics to be only these things in the box. Don't expect economics to be only this thing that is very clear and which you can actually make with a machine. This is this beauty contest with computers now. There is I don't know, software or application, Word or something, and you can just put some words into it, and it orders them in this way. And there is a rationale behind it, because the machine then tells you what is really important. So BCC is obviously very important. Economics, September, and you see the order. I don't see this order, meaning I see what is going there, but I don't see the rationale behind it. But of course there is a rationale behind it. And here we can all see the rationale behind it, behind order, behind beauty. And now you can, of course, come and say, which one is more beautiful? Is it this well-ordered, along colors, along forms, along substance, if you want? This is banana, this is kiwi, I think it's apple and stuff. Or is it just the beauty of this mixed bowl of fruit? And how do you eat it, actually? Do you want to eat it this way, or do you want to eat just a mixed fruit? So there is a certain beauty behind it, and this is something which actually kind of stresses me out when teaching. On the one hand, you need this specific order, and this is what economics is about to some extent. Certain definitions, very specific definitions that you have to learn, some equations, some formulas, and some very clear connections between them. At the same time, and this is something we will see further on, all these orders, and we start actually with something on this, all these orders are specifically defined. It's not one order given in one way. It's not even if you say economics, there's only one order to it. You could order this according to price. You could order this according to season whenever it's on the market. You could order it along the line of calories, of energy. Energy is an economic term. Any production needs energy. So you could have these different options there, and you can say, actually, this is the content. You have different order again. This is the content, this is the form. We put the content into a specific form. Meaning we put stuff into the supermarket or into the small shop or wherever. So you have different forms, and we have different perspectives on one of the core dimensions of economics. And this core issue of economics is the one of goods and services and commodities. We are interested in social relations. As I said, economics is a social science. It's not about natural science of nature or something. But we are, of course, interested in specific social relationships. Or in relationships and their specific dimension of economics, of producing life, producing what we need for life, and exchanging it. Those who read the Engels text already know this. We come to it literally later. Different dimensions and core dimensions of economics on this one thing. Goods, services, commodities. seemingly not economics, it's the legal status, property. Who owns the product? Who owns the means of production? Who has control over it? And mind, these are different things. I may have the immediate control over something. I am working with a machine, but it does not mean that I have the legal right, that I own the machine. It may be that actually the person who owns it doesn't know even how to switch it on. Take a car, you own it in inverted commas, you can drive it, but you don't own it, and your father, your mother own it, and possibly they are not able to drive it. They may not be able to open the door properly. So these are different things. Property, and this is property on the one hand in terms of production. Who owns the means of production? Who can control the process of production in legal terms? And consumption and use. Because we buy products and we can use them. And this is the question. Do we buy them? Do we get them as gift? Or in which way ever do we obtain of them? Then we come to something that is more obvious or more expected to be about economics. It's the value. And we all kind of immediately link economics to something of value. And when we talk about, in economics, about value, we are not talking about, I like this is really valuable for me. But we are talking about that's the question, the value in different dimensions. The one is the use value, actually. And I was organizing something, I was saying something. There are paintings involved in moving stuff from A to B, and some are just a sentimental value. It's more or less printed paper. They don't have any material value. If you bring them to the market, they look at you and say, well, fortunately there's something on the back and I can use it for writing something. They don't have really value. For me, they are valuable. And then there are other paintings which are valuable in terms of I can bring them to the market and I get more or less a huge amount of money for them. That's the same with anything. You have the use value and you have the exchange value. And it is difficult, and this is subject of economics, to determine how do we actually define A, the relationship between the two, that's what we are discussing later today, and B, how can we actually determine the exchange value? Is the determination of the exchange value just a matter of negotiation? I really want this, so I pay more. Or, okay, I would take it, but don't charge me too much. Is it depending on the time in the desert? Hour 71, supposedly you need 72 hours. After 72 hours not drinking, you pass away. So hour 71, you really need water, so you pay a high price for it. Whereas in a city like Rome, where water is free, you can just go around the corner. There's a free water coming out of the well, clean. You don't pay anything. Is it this? Or is it the production, the cost of production? How much work is going into it? How much labor is going into it? Again, production of commodities, of goods, commodities, in terms of technology. And there is a close link between them. if you have the water coming out of the tap, that's not much labor involved. You just open the tap and the water comes. For you, it's just this one turn. Now the alternative is you don't have this and you have to dig a hole. You talk in 1 week and you can come back and you have clean water. Because for clean water you have to dig very deep. Now if I have the tap, I don't see the technology behind it, but it is there. Somebody else did the work before, but it is, for me, just a technology thing. If I don't have to dig the hole, but I have tools for it, machines possibly, that's a different story, different technology, which of course influences the exchange value as well. And this is then here the point of cost of production and exchange. They're all linked. They are just different. It's just about a different emphasis on aspects. The cost of production, what does it cost? How much work, how much labor do I have to invest to do something, to achieve something? Or is it just the exchange question of if there are enough people asking for it, paying for it, that determines the price. And this question of cost of production is, of course, a very difficult one, and this is what will employ us throughout the rest of the year. How to determine this? You can say, I'm standing here now for, 1.5 hours. So I should get paid for 1.5 hours. And not more. Now there was a colleague we had been chatting the other day, and she said there was one bright student, and she came up, explained something, and the colleague said, "This is just on the spot. Do you want to continue?" No. So there is something more than just standing here and talking. There is something you have to prepare immediately, even if it's only these beauty slides, for the lesson, but it is as well your education. It is as well that you do other things. So this is part of the cost of production. What goes into it? What kind of support do you have? Something that is behind the scenes and that you won't see or that you won't see immediately. Commodities. Now I'm talking about commodities, not of products, not of goods, is the core of economics today. I have here a definition, if you want, from Polanyi. You read it. It is with the help of the commodity concept that the mechanism of the market is geared to the various elements of industrial life. Important. It's this general concept, kind of colorless, commodities. And it diffuses then in this variety various elements of industrial life. So you have commodities as a general concept, and then you have the different commodities concrete that you find in this process. Commodities are here empirically defined as objects produced for sale on the market. It's not a product. It's not something you produced, but it is produced for the market. Markets, again, are empirically defined as actual contacts between buyers and sellers. We are not interested in anybody and his/her relationships, but we are interested in the relationship between buyers and sellers. indirectly with it in the relationship to the producers, to the actual producers, because without the producer, they will not be on the market. So you see the circle here. Accordingly, every element of industry is regarded as having been produced for sale, as then and then only will it be subject to the supply and demand mechanism interacting with price. So what we usually do, discussing these things, presenting these things, thinking about these things, reading in the newspapers, we have the demand and supply, the market, demand and supply. But here you can see nicely what is behind it. It's not the exchange of one good against another, but there is a complex social relationship behind it. And some things we can immediately see, empirically, taken empirically. Empirically defined. Empirically defined is we see, and what we see we take as part of this definition. A commodity, taking another author, is in the first place an object outside us. So it's not producing ourselves for the market, but it's something outside of us. A thing that by its properties satisfies human wants of some sort or another. Some sort or another of human wants. If there is no demand, we won't be able to sell it. Whatever the demand is, we are talking about use value. The nature of such wants, whether, for instance, they spring from the stomach or from fancy, makes no difference. We need something to eat, as simple as that. We need some kind of clothes. But a simple t-shirt, a simple shirt or jacket does the job. But maybe we want some fancy stuff, something that is currently on the market and only for 1 year, or something that is very expensive, some status involved. This doesn't matter. We see this additional value of, I like it. This is something I like. I like the design, I like the color, I like whatsoever. This is enough. We can use this as well, even if we don't physically use it. Physically, it doesn't matter if the jacket is black or white or I don't know what. For us, for me, it matters. Everybody has a different taste. And then you have every year something new coming up, because this year we want to sell something new, so we have to invent something new. Neither are we here concerned to know how the object satisfies these wants, whether directly, important as well, directly as means of subsistence or indirectly as means of production. Some stuff we need immediately. Food we eat. We go to the shop, we go on the market and buy whatever we want to eat. Now you may have the same stuff bought by a restaurant owner. He doesn't eat it or she doesn't eat it, but needs it as means of production, if you want. It's part of the product sold in the restaurant. So this is very important as distinction as well. The one is use value, exchange value. The other is means of production or consumer. Terminologies, abstractions that will follow us throughout the year. Abstractions, I say, because we don't see it. In many cases, we don't see it, what it is. In some cases, of course, we see it. If it's a machine, nobody will consume this for private use. But as I said, food, for instance, we don't see this is going into the restaurant and this is immediately consumed. If you have a car, we don't see if this is used for private purposes or if it is used for as part of a productive process. If you have a camera, you don't know if it's just for fun or if it's part of your business. So this is important to consider. And in any case, there is this fact that every useful thing, as iron, paper, etc., may be looked at from 2 points of view of quantity and quality. This is something we have to get into our head, that we have these 2 dimensions, and they are different. Although, usually if we go into the shop or whatever, we don't consider this difference. We just go there, we see something, and then we may actually, on certain occasions, we may see the difference if we go to the cashier then and have to pay depending on the weight. This is the point. A thing can be a use value without having values. Meaning I can use it. It's important for me to use it. But actually I didn't buy it on the market. It was not produced even for the market that it is sold. But it is there in this respect of valuable for me. And I can use it. This is the case whenever its utility to man is not due to labor, meaning to the labor on the market. Somebody produced it, but it's not produced for the market. Or such are air, virgin soil, natural meadows, etc. A thing can be useful and the product of human labor without being a commodity. Whoever directly satisfies his wants with the produce of his own labor creates indeed use values, but not commodities. So what you do in your dorm, cleaning the dorm, is not a commodified service. If you come to my apartment and get paid for it, that's a different story. If you do it for your fellow students and they pay for it, it's again a different story. If you do it because they are nice, that's another story. In order to produce the latter, he must not only produce use value, but use values for others, social use values. To become a commodity, a product must be transferred to another whom it will serve as a use value by means of exchange. Lastly, nothing can have value without being an object of utility. This concept of utility is a core concept of the entire economic process. In some way, you can say it's only the utility that actually defines something as being commodity, as being valuable on the market. Lastly, nothing can have value without being an object of utility. If the thing is useless, so is the labor contained in it. The labor does not count as labor and therefore creates no value. Mind, this use value is not the use value in the narrow sense. It's nothing that you really need. I think I mentioned it, computers we use, the use of computers is by about 20%, I heard once. There are 80%, if this figure is still correct, we don't use. We don't even know about it. But we buy them because we want to have the best, the latest model, the whatsoever, and this contains all this rubbish. We could do with a much smaller item. There are different things you can take. We need a chair, but we want a throne, and buy a throne, but what we need is actually the simple chair to sit on. So this is something where we have to be clear about. The use value is what we like to use. It's not the physical use in the strict sense, because we can sit on the chair and on the throne. I've never been sitting on a throne, so I don't know if there's a serious difference, if it's so much more comfortable. It's as well something that is looking good in our personal opinion that is more valuable. So personal opinion comes into it. Looking at it in terms of society, we have in those societies in which the capitalist mode of production prevails, the fact that presents itself as an immense accumulation of commodities, its unit being a single commodity. This is wealth. The amount of accumulated commodities. This is how in economics we measure wealth. Even if you don't use it, if you don't need it, it's considered to be wealth. So it's not the material wealth in the strict sense, but it is something that is simply produced as commodity. Now, so far we are dealing with commodities, and so far it is something distinct from products. Now we have this general term of commodities, but we have something else, and we had been talking about this at the end of the last lecture. These commodities are different. They are not different only in concrete terms. A mouse is a mouse and not a cat, and not a bottle of water. So there is this difference, the variety of products. But then, and here you see why I mentioned the importance of law, of property rights. We have different property rights, meaning these commodities and goods have a different status in society. In many cases, you can actually say that different societies, or the difference between societies, is to some extent, to a large extent, defined by actually where is the focus, what is the dominance in terms of the legal rights. Again, there are different ways of assessing it. The one is simply not only, but very much determined by the nature of the beast, the product or the good itself. Air. I cannot say we separate the room, row 1 to 5 can breathe, and the others can't. The air is in the room. I can, of course, put up a wall there and create a vacuum. That's a different story. But first and foremost, naturally taken, the air is there. Like groundwater. It's a kind of natural common pool resource. It's there, given by nature. What you found in this previous quote. Air, virgin soil, natural minerals. They are simply there. They are not by nature prone to be private goods. And the point of definition is subtractability of use and exclusion of potential beneficiaries. As I said, I cannot exclude from row 5 or something. You are not allowed to breathe. The air is only belonging to us. This is a huge effort to do so. And the subtractability of use, you use it or you don't use it. You can't use a little bit at the end. Of course, individually we breathe only a certain amount, but it's not possible to say, well, today we get 1 bag of air and tomorrow we get a little bit more. The other is that this common pool resource is taken different legal form. Legal form means a different form of control. And there are 2 ways, actually, 2 basic ways, and this goes back to Eleanor Ostrom. That's the public good and the private good. Now, mind, we are talking about goods now. It's not the resource anymore, but it's now a good. Private goods, food, clothing, automobiles, machines. These would be typical private goods, owned by individuals, owned privately, used privately, and used completely. Because if I wear a trouser, there's no subtraction. You won't wear this trouser. You can have it afterwards, but not at the same time. There's no subtraction. A little bit trouser I have and a little bit you have. So this is non-subtractability. We can share it over time or whatsoever, but it's not subtractable. Computer, I use the computer, or you use it. We don't use it together. We can use at the same time the internet. And that is this idea of public goods in many cases, providing infrastructure, for instance, access to internet, roads, hospitals, education, where you have the low subtractability, but as well a high potential beneficiaries. Meaning everybody ideally can go to school, to university, to the hospital, and benefit from it. And it is done by the state providing it, by the public providing it, I should say public and not the state, saying actually everybody needs it. Peace. We cannot have peace for you, but not for you, as a country. We have peace, or we go to war. But it's not you go to war and we live in peace. Weather forecast, whatever she mentions there. And then there are these toll goods. And toll goods are more or less previous invention, young invention. That you have actually something where the public says we need these services, we need this infrastructure, but we cannot pay for it. Now you pay, of course, for public goods. You pay taxes. But the taxes go into a huge pot and then they are distributed. And you don't pay for this road and you don't pay for this hospital if it's a public good. You pay for hospitals, you pay taxes. If you go there or if you don't go there, if you use the road, if you don't use it, you pay. Here it's different. Toll goods, where the public actually says, public body actually says, we should have them. We should provide them. Education is good, hospitals is good, motor highways are good. But we don't provide them for everybody, just in case, but we provide them for those people who use them. And this means we don't provide them as a public body, but we get somebody who can make profit out of it, and who can make profit out of it by charging you for the amount of use. So the difference is the public hospital, it's there, you go there and you don't pay. The toll good hospital, daycare centers, would be, it's there, you don't pay for it, but if you go there, if you use it, then you have to pay. The motor highway, it's there. The public road is there. You can use it. Anybody can use it. As long as you observe the rules, you drive on the right side, and there's certain speed limits and so on, but it's open. The toll good, the motor highway toll good is different there, that there's this toll station. You enter there, you go to point B and leave the highway at point B, and there's somebody standing, controlling with his ticket. All right, you entered the motor highway at A, you have been going to B, that's 100 miles, and you have to pay this and that amount. If you go to C, it's a different amount. And then, of course, you can possibly negotiate. If you go there on a regular basis, you go every day, you get an annual ticket or whatsoever. But the principle is always this, that you have these different kinds of goods. Now, some form of distribution, some forms of products existed throughout history, and before what we heard before this capitalist society, before it was produced as commodities. So what happened there? And we go back to Polanyi. It is not this production for the market, but it is now the production to satisfy use values. This is the core of it. You don't produce for the market, but you produce having the use value as a focus, as the only thing. And you produce, let's start at the end if you want, you produce for the household, which is more or less autark. You produce for your household, you don't produce for the rest of the world. Householding management. And then you come to the way, how do we distribute this? It's not happening via the market, but it is happening now by a general distribution according to the principles of symmetry in terms of organization and in terms of reciprocity. Tit for tat or something like this, you get something, I get something, but we don't exchange. At the end of the day, this is the general formula, at the end of the day it will pay out. It may be you get more now, because I have more now. But tomorrow I may have less, and then I get more from you than in this immediate exchange. This sounds all quite nice. It is all quite nice, but you have at least this one kind of problem. And we are talking about traditional societies, and usually, to use a shortcut, it is about this issue of centricity, of having a feudal system, of having a lord, whichever kind of lord, and this lord decides, maybe the leader of the tribe, maybe something like this, who decides, you get so much, and you don't get anything. So. And this means that the leader of the tribe, the feudal patron, can decide kind of voluntarily about this distribution. There's always the distribution of time, and we have a break now.